Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Cinemacast. This is season 2 of Cinemacast. If you guys have yet to do so, hit that like and subscribe button down below. If you enjoy our podcast, if you enjoy our game streams and such on here on YouTube, or come on over to our streaming platforms, Twitch and Kick. Follow us over there as well. If you guys want to keep up to date with us on any of our upcoming uploads for Cinemacast or anything else, follow us on Twitter at Mike CAWAN. And if you're on Discord, click that link down below and come join us on Discord for updates over there as well. So, got a very not just spooky one, but a very interesting movie to talk about today. Now, this isn't just any ordinary movie. This is something that actually had an impact on the people over in the UK. This movie, as you could tell by the poster, it was aired on BBC, the BBC network over in the UK. This movie, Ghostwatch. Now, before I get into it, we've already talked about found footage movies like Late Night with the Devil. I am a sucker for movies like that. You know, I'm a sucker for found footage movies because there's a lot of them out there that are so damn good. They are worthy of watching. Even if you're not a fan of found footage movies, check one out. See how you like it. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you've already seen something along the lines of like the Blair Witch Project, which was done very well. It was shot very well. It's a very good movie. It was a very good found footage movie, and it had such a phenomenal impact on us, you know, outside of cinema. You know, there was people who actually believed that those 3 actors died and disappeared. People were venturing out to Burkesville, Maryland, you know, to find the Blair Witch, which doesn't exist. And then only to find that the actors in the movie, they're all living. None of them died. So that raised the bar for that kind of subgenre, you know. So, you know, found footage movies have been a thing for so long. And even though the Blair Witch Project was not the first found footage movie, and a lot of people will say it is, but it's not. It's the first one to bring it to a mainstream audience in theaters. It made it mainstream again. It made it just like Halloween is not the first slasher movie. It's the first one that had a very big cultural impact on the subgenre for slasher horrors. You know, you had movies before that like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho and such, you know, which did extremely well, but Halloween put that subgenre on the map. Same thing with the Blair Witch Project. It put the subgenre for found footage horror movies on the map. It wasn't the first to do it, but it was the first to put it on the map for people, you know, to bring people into that subgenre. You know, if you haven't seen movies like I think the Last Broadcast, which was a found footage movie that came out in the early to mid 90s, that was one of the first, but it wasn't the first. But movies like that, like if you weren't interested in a movie like that, but you watched the Blair Witch Project and you're like, holy shit, this has such a phenomenal impact on, you know, the audience. So yeah, that was one of the first that actually brought a broader audience into the genre and got them hooked. Ghostwatch is one of those that came out in 1992, and this has such an impact in the UK, and I'm just now getting around to, well, I've already watched it some time ago, and I almost forgot that this was the movie that it had an impact, and I was like, you know, this was something I had to talk about on another podcast of mine, and it was very interesting, and I knew it would make for a good topic today for this podcast. So Ghostwatch is a British mockumentary supernatural horror TV movie. Yes, it's a TV movie. This is a movie that was not aired in theaters. It was aired in the UK. And I'm pretty sure it came over to the US and aired over here at some point. But this was aired in the UK. It was not shown in theaters. It was a television program that was aired. And it was the first broadcast from BBC One on Halloween night, 1992. And the movie was written by Stephen Volk and directed by Leslie Manning. The drama was produced for the BBC anthology series Screen One by Richard Broke, Ruth Baumgartner, and Derek Nelson. Despite having been recorded weeks in advance, the narrative was presented as a live television. So this movie was pre-recorded weeks in advance, and it was presented as a live broadcast on Halloween night, which is pretty cool. You know, it made people think, hey, we're live, call in, do this, do that, you know. During and following its first and only UK broadcast. Now, mind you, this movie only aired one time in the UK, and then it was banned after that. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So, during it and following its first and only UK broadcast, the show attracted a considerable furore, resulting in an estimated 1 million phone call inquiries to the BBC switchboard on the night of the broadcast, comprising of a mixture of complaints and praise for the program's unique presentation. This outrage often compared to Orson Welles' 1938 The War of the Worlds broadcast on the radio and 1994's Without Warning television film, which both of which also caused nationwide panic in the United States. Now, there's another one that I want to watch too. Now that I'm just reading, which is Without Warning, follows a duo of real-life reporters covering breaking news about 3 meteor fragments crashing into the northern hemisphere. Oh, that aired on CBS the night before Halloween. I gotta check that out. Holy shit! So, this movie, even though it's found footage and it's a mockumentary, it falls in comparison. If none of you young folk know who Orson Welles is, you know, he was a TV broadcaster back in the 1930s, 40s, and such. And he had such a big cultural impact on the public back in 1938 with his rendition of The War of the Worlds. That's how old The World of Worlds is. It's not just a movie that has Tom Cruise in it. You know, it's not just about that. This was a radio broadcast that was presented and aired on radio in 1938 and was told so well that people thought that we were being invaded by aliens. That's how much of an impact the radio broadcast had in 1938. Like, you gotta figure, you got such an imagination, and you got this guy who's on the radio talking like he's a broadcaster, you know, talking about, oh my God, aliens have landed in DC, this is happening, that's happening. He had the world everybody was scared shitless in 1938, only to find out that it was just a radio show, you know? That's how much of an impact something like that happened. Same thing here with this TV movie. Ghostwatch had never been repeated on the UK television. It has been repeated internationally on stations such as the Canadian digital channel Scream for Halloween 2004 and the Belgian channel Canvas in 2008. From 2017 to 2019, Ghostwatch was made available on the American streaming video service Shudder and was made available on the Internet Archive in 2017. There have been 3 UK home video releases. In 2002, the British Film Institute released a 10th anniversary edition on both VHS and DVD, and 101 Films issued a DVD release in 2011 and a 30th anniversary Blu-ray in 2022. In 2016, the BBC store made the film available as part of a Frightmares collection marking Halloween. A retrospective documentary, Ghostwatch Behind the Curtain, based this on the films, Lasting Impact was released on DVD in 2013. So, what is this phenomenal movie about? So, this movie, which was aired Halloween night, 1992, and it was broadcasted as like a live television show where they made it look like, okay, we're live. To those of you who are at home watching, we're going into this house that's haunted, and I forgot where the house is. The house was located at the fictional Fox Hill Drive in North Holt, Greater London. It's a fictional house that's said to be haunted. So they were, the host, who's very, very skeptic about it. He's hosting this show. He's got this this medium, I think she is, on the TV on the show with him, and she's going over the case that she was reading up on about this haunting in this house that was affecting this mother and her two daughters that were living there. Also, off to the side, they had this little showcase where people could call in. It's like a little telethon kind of thing. You had one guy who was there was a bunch of people manning the phones, and one guy who was broadcasting different calls and such. So you had a call center there. You had the host. You had the guest, and they even had a skeptic. Usually when it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to paranormal phenomena and such, you're always going to have to call some kind of skeptic in there, over the phone and get their opinions on everything. And of course, they got to be the asshole of the movie or of the show or whatever. So going into this, it was presented as a live broadcast hosted by Michael Parkinson in an attempt to present concrete evidence of paranormal phenomena. To achieve this, the program launched on an on-air investigation into the house, which I already stated is very fictional. Pamela Early and her daughters Suzanne and Kim are tormented by a poltergeist, referred to by Kim as Mr. Pipes. His name originating from the noises made in the house's plumbing. Pipes routinely possesses and harms Suzanne, and is said to dwell in the house's basement, which is referred to as the glory hole. Now, before we continue, guys, everybody here in the United States with a very perverted mind knows what a glory hole is called. But apparently over in the UK, their term for basements is glory hole. I don't know why. I did not research that. I didn't look into it to understand why it's called a glory hole. It just is. Parkinson is supported by his fellow host Sarah Green, who ventures into the house to spend the night with the Earlys. Her husband Mike Smith, who oversees stage phone calls from the public who wishes to share their own ghost stories, and even comedian Craig Charles, who interviews the locals regarding the street's violent history. Green is also accompanied by her camera crew, Chris Miller and Mike Aton. I'll just say Mike, Chris and Mike, played by actual BBC technicians. Oh, nice. So you got actual technicians from the BBC network who are playing the cameramen. That's pretty cool. Parkinson is joined in the studio by Dr. Lynn Pascal, a psychologist studying the phenomenon. Going into, at first, the broadcast seems harmless. As their broadcast, they're going back and forth between the house and what's his name, Craig Charles, who's out on the street, who's interviewing people and such. To other, they're just talking about it. It's a back and forth program, basically. If you watch shows like this where they go back and forth, like, oh, we're on the scene with this person, we're on the scene with that person. That's how this movie pretty much plays out. So the broadcast at first seems harmless, but then supernatural phenomena begin to occur in the house. Suzanne is exposed falsifying the ghost noises, convincing Parkinson that the whole affair is a hoax. And that does happen. So there's a part in the movie where they explain how the kids were tormented in school because, everybody hears that the house is haunted. The house is haunted, and nobody would believe them. They would have all these investigators come out. They would have all the news reporters come out and they would basically laugh at them, saying, this whole thing's a fraud. You're all frauds. This ain't true. Da da da. So you got the kids that are creating, this atmosphere, making these noises just to push this television crew out and away. And it's like, you don't believe us, just go away. I'm making it up, that kind of thing. So that's what happens in in the first third of the movie. You got Suzanne who's making noises and stuff, and it's seen on camera. You got one of these little cameras that pan in on her causing noises and shit and pretending. So Suzanne then speaks in a demonic voice and develops scratches all over her face. The public also then calls in and shares their ghost stories. Numerous callers mention that they have seen Pipes lurking in the house, and many people say paranormal incidents are happening in our own home, which is pretty... Now, mind you, this whole thing was pre-recorded. It was pre-filmed, and it was aired on television Halloween night. So it's like anybody who called in, it was already, they already made fake callers for the movie, but I'm pretty sure people who actually called in probably couldn't get a hold of them, and they were complaining and this and this and that. But it was said in there that, okay, people have seen the entity of Mr. Pipes, which you do see throughout this movie. You do see in certain areas this figure that looks like it doesn't belong, but you really got to be looking for them. But now some areas, it's very subtle. You do see them. You do see like this presence of them. But then there's other areas where this presence is at, and you don't expect him to be there, but he is there. So, you got people that are calling in and saying, hey, we just saw Mr. Pipes standing right there and right here. And then they're saying that whatever's going on with this program, they're saying that it's having some kind of effect with them at home, like they're starting to experience paranormal phenomenon, which is, I'm looking at it as like, if a program does something like that to where people start thinking they have ghosts in their house, then that has a very strong impact. That's something I like to see right there. So Mr. Pipes' background is slowly pieced together. An interviewed neighbor mentions that Mother Seddons, a Victorian baby farmer who murdered children reimagined as the boogeyman by the locals. Later, an anonymous call from Pipes' probation officer reveals that his name is Raymond Tunstall, a disturbed pedophile who was believed to have been possessed by Seddons, hanging himself in the glory hole. I can't get over the fact that it's called the glory hole. It's a basement, but they call it a glory hole. So anyway, he's said to have been possessed by this woman, hung himself in the basement where the body was eaten by the relatives' cats. Now, this was one thing that kind of had an impact on me. And it didn't leave me disturbed, but it just left me thinking. Now, as a cat owner myself, I have 2 cats. And currently, as I'm recording this, I'm holding one, a kitten in my arms that's sleeping. But to see a movie like this, and the part of the plot is you got this guy who's hung himself in a basement, and he is surrounded by his relatives' cats, and there was I think they said like 20 some cats. I can't remember, but they were all left starving. They were needing to eat, so they decided to eat the guy's face. Start to eat the corpse. And throughout the movie, you do hear sounds of scratching, like a cat trying to scratch in the wall to get out, and then you hear meowing. And a couple times you do see cats as well. Pascal then suggests that there may be a greater force at play, possibly an ancient evil that possessed Mother Seddons, Tunstall, and countless others. As the house grows increasingly dangerous, Suzanne disappears and is heard from within the locked glory hole. Camera crew forces the door open, only for a mirror to fall and hit and wound one of the cameramen. Now, I'm not going to continue on with it because this is where a lot of the stuff starts, getting more and more intense in the movie. And I'm not going to spoil that whole ending for you. But let's just say, going behind the scenes, this TV movie is based on the tale of the Enfield poltergeist. Now, if you guys don't know what the Enfield poltergeist is, Now, if you, for modern audiences, you've probably seen the Conjuring movies, Conjuring 2, Annabelle, all that stuff. Some of those movies are actually based on actual hauntings, while the other ones, they're just fairy tales made up as a regular horror movie to scare people, to go along with the Conjuring universe, as they say. But the Enfield Poltergeist, which was the Conjuring 2 was based off of, was an actual haunting over in the UK. And this movie almost kind of feels like that in a sense, but it's not the Enfield haunting. So yeah, that was loosely based off of that. And then also in the movie, a phone number was shown on the screen so viewers could call in and discuss their ghostly phenomena. The number that was the standard BBC call-in number at the time. And it's funny. It only consists of 3 digits. It was 081-811-8181. That's a funny fucking phone number. It's interesting. It was also used on programs such as Going Live, and callers who got through were connected first to the message telling them that the show was fictional before being given the chance to share their own ghost stories. Probably as a way of writing future stories for Ghostwatch. However, the phone number was besieged by countless callers during the showing, and many people who telephoned simply got an engaged tone, partially because that there was only 5 telephone operators available. This commonly happened when phoning BBC call-in shows and inadvertently added to the realism instead of reassuring viewers that it was fake. So, this movie, all in all, you got a program that's, sends this camera crew in to investigate this haunting. Things start happening. You got people that are skeptic, and then a lot of other things start happening all around. This movie, I will say, it had such an impact on the UK and such. So, let's go ahead and talk about what was going on in the film. You got the ghost, who was played by actor Keith Ferrari, who's known as Pipes. The technology with the film, many methods familiar to modern ghost hunting shows such as Most Haunted are demonstrated in the show, some of which were either genuine state-of-the-art technology at the time or simulated to give the idea that they are real. The house was allegedly equipped with motion detectors, temperature sensors, and covert cameras. The temperature sensors were referred to as being able to check the dramatic changes in temperature that the ghost hunters linked to in real-life ghost sightings. One major feature of the show, which was a genuine thermographic camera, which, although it did not pick up any ghosts, came in very handy when all the lights failed at the end of the show. Thermographic, it's a thermo camera. It picks up on, like heat signatures, stuff like that. Then there was ghostly depictions. The program makers used examples of allegedly paranormal phenomena. During the course of the program, there were many references to characters being allegedly possessed by a ghost who, whilst doing so, maniacally recites nursery rhymes. This happens on a tape recording of the eldest daughter, Suzanne, later in the live section of the same character, and eventually Michael Parkinson himself is seen to be possessed. So we're getting a little too far into that. So now there's some controversy behind this film, which is what really amazes me about it. This is not just a good movie. This is not only a good movie, but just the impact that this TV movie had on the culture. So the controversy, although Ghostwatch was aired under the Screen One drama banner, its documentary style led many viewers to believe that the events were real, causing much controversy after the show's airing. The BBC was designed with phone calls from irate and frightened viewers, among them Parkinson's elderly mother. British tabloids and other newspapers criticized the BBC the next day for the disturbing nature of some scenes, such as Green's final scene, and I'm not going to talk about that. A false rumor was persisted that Sarah Green had advertised the program on her Saturday morning children's show going live, including a visit to the location of the haunting, and gave the impression that she was taking part in a reality show. The rumor was this rumor was debunked via the Ghostwatch Behind the Curtain blog. After acquiring the three most likely episodes of Going Live, the blog's editors found no reference to the show. Green did, however, appear on the following morning children's BBC strand to reassure young viewers that the show was not real. Now, here's the thing with this show. When it aired, usually shows like this, when they air, there would be some kind of disclaimer placed before the show's credits, before the show started. Even when you go to commercial break, you would think that there'd be some kind of disclaimer to the movie. However, there was never a disclaimer placed on this movie. So people who watched it, they actually thought this was happening in real life. They actually thought it was happening as they were watching. And plus, for them to say that they were getting callers saying that their house was haunted and shit, and something was summoned, there was a seance or something, and there was a spirit that was summoned or whatever. So this movie had such an effect, and people weren't believing it. That's why there were so many complaints from people calling into the BBC. That's one of the reasons why this movie only aired one time since then. Well, up until like maybe 10 years later, when they're like, I'll just go ahead and air it with a behind the scenes thing, But yeah, the movie aired, no disclaimer. So people took it as is. They said, oh my God, this is really happening. This is like Orson Welles' War of the Worlds all over again. No disclaimer. This shit's actually happening. Now, here's the psychological effect with this movie. Okay, there was a number of psychological effects that were reported in the wake of the movie. This one, which is a great, great tragedy that had happened. And like I said, this is what really interests me in talking about this movie. 18-year-old factory worker Martin Denham, who suffered from learning difficulties and had a middle age of 13, took his own life 5 days after the program aired. The family home had suffered with a faulty central heating system, which caused the pipes in the walls to knock. Denham linked this to the activity in the show, causing great worry. So yeah, in the movie, like I said, there'd be knocking in the walls, and they would refer to the entity as Mr. Pipes because pipes knocking in the walls, and the same thing was happening in his teenager's house. He started to hear pipes knocking, so he started thinking, "Oh my God, the house is possessed." Mr. Pipes is here. So he left a suicide note reading, "If there are ghosts, I will be with you always as a ghost." His mother and stepfather, April and Percy Denham, blamed the BBC. They claimed that Martin was hypnotized and obsessed by the program. The Broadcasting Standards Commission refused their complaint along with 34 others as being outside their remit, but the High Court granted the Denhams permission for a judicial review requiring the BSC to hear the complaint. In its ruling, the BSC stated the BBC had a duty to do more than simply hint at the deception it is practicing on the audience. In Ghostwatch, there was a deliberate attempt to cultivate a sense of menace. They ruled that the program was excessively distressing and graphic, referring to the scratches on the children and the reference to mutilated animals, and it had aired too soon after 9 p.m. The watershed. They further stated that the presence of the program presented familiar to the children's programs took some parents off guard to deciding whether their children could continue to view. The film's producers argue that Ghostwatch had aired during a drama slot that was recognizable as fiction to a vast majority, and the running disclaimers and other announcements during the program would have ruined its effectiveness. They also stated that had they anticipated that the audience reaction, they would have made a fictional nature clearer. However, after the BSC's ruling, they issued an apology. That is something there, especially like, okay, over in the UK, apparently they have the strict rule where children are not allowed to be up and at 'em at 9 p.m. They shouldn't be on TV. Like, the UK has very strict fucking rules over there. Like, shit, they don't even allow fucking firearms. You know, nobody's allowed to own a firearm. Why do you think crime is so fucking so low over there as compared to over here in the United States, you know? Simmons and Severia published a report to the British Medical Journal in February of 94 describing 2 cases of Ghostwatch induced post-traumatic stress disorder in children, both 10-year-old boys. They stated that they were the first reported cases of PTSD caused by television programs. Responses to the article described a further 4 cases in children aged between 11 and 14, as well as 1 case in the 8-year-old that stemmed from watching a pre-watershed medical drama Casualty. The respondents also noted the potential for similar reactions in elderly people. However, the conclusion of the article states the rapid resolution of the children's symptoms suggests that the children suffered a brief anxiety reaction to the television program. Although they may have exhibited some of the features of PTSD, the diagnosis in their cases is inappropriate. So they were over there trying to say that PTSD, they had their first signs of PTSD in these children all over a television program. Isn't that something? Isn't that interesting when you see a movie like this? And this movie is on Shudder, by the way, guys. If you guys have the Shudder app, check this out. It's on Shudder. It's definitely worth a watch. It has its terrifying moments. It really is. Like I said, if you're somebody who's into found footage documentary style films, this is up your alley. If it's something that if you're not into that subgenre, but you want to check it out, trust me, it's definitely worth it. This is a movie. Not only is it a found footage mockumentary type movie, but the impact that this movie had on the UK. It's I don't want to say it's so amazing because there was a death involved. An actual teenager took his life because of this movie, because his mental status, like I said, this kid was mentally ill. And he's thinking that, oh my God, my house is haunted because of this TV show. And he decides to kill himself. That's how much of an impact that this movie had. And not only that, for them to come out and say that, you know, children who watch this movie develop PTSD because it involves kids. Like, how many movies have come out within the last 100 years? Let's just so to say. Let's put it in a wide group, okay? Let's open it up very wide, like the last 100 years, okay? How many movies have come out that involved children in such grotesque or graphic or disturbing manners? A shit ton of them, right? A bunch of movies that involve children, because what makes a movie more terrifying than when a child or children are involved or in danger in some way? Take Stephen King's It. Heavily influenced on kids that are under attack. You know, they're in danger of this entity that, you know, takes possession of not takes possession, but it's basically is a clown. You know, it takes the image of a clown. I'm trying to think of the words here. I'm trying to muddle through the words, but you got this entity, this being that, you know, takes that makes the image of a clown, because kids are scared of clowns, right? Or they think, oh, kids love clowns. They don't think of clowns as being scary until something happens, you know? Like, even the reboot for Stephen King's It, like, it depicts so much graphic detail of what this clown does to kids. Like, there's even a scene where you see it biting a child's arm off and you see the arm missing. Yeah, so you got movies where children are involved in some way. They're in some kind of danger. I guess that makes the movie a little bit more terrifying in a sense, rather than some adult who's like, oh yeah, that guy's a pussy if he's gonna sit there and scream like that and run from a fucking ghost or something, you know? But it's more traumatizing when there's a child involved. And especially in this case with a movie like this, where in real life a teenager just turned 18 or has been 18 for some time, you know, who's mentally retarded, to take his own life because he believes that it happened in the movie, it's starting to happen here, so, well, I guess if there's a ghost, then I will be a ghost then. So that was his mentality. Especially for children to develop or supposedly develop PTSD from watching something this incredibly scary. If that were the case, like how many kids or how many of us who grew up on horror movies, we all would have developed PTSD from the fucking shit we saw. There were movies back in the day that I used to watch I was scared shitless of. I'll sit here and watch them today. They're some of my favorite fucking movies, you know? Shit, you would think that we would have developed PTSD or something that traumatizing or scary. And there's still so many movies that, yeah, there's a lot of movies that people will not watch today. There are some adults who have fear of clowns. They will not watch Stephen King's It because they hate clowns. They have a fear of clowns. So, you know, there is some kind of cultural impact with certain movies. It's very interesting. I do like the science of that. You know, it's pretty cool. So this movie, it was met with positive response from both fans and critics alike, notably leading the film and TV magazines SFX and Starburst awarding 4 out of 5 and 8 out of 10 ratings respectively. The film is subsequently selected for the inclusion of BFI's, I don't even want to pronounce that goddamn word, for the upcoming Haunted Collections from December 2013 onwards. So guys, this movie, if like I said, if you guys got Shudder, check this movie out. This is the only way, I believe. It may be on Amazon Prime, I'm not too sure. If not, check out Shudder. $6.99 a month, guys. They got some really good horror movies on there, some of which you have never heard of, but they are really good. Check them out. Ghostwatch, you know, for what it is, it aired as a television show, had a very big cultural impact in the UK. You know, there's so much behind it, you know, with the story and all. I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10, guys. If you guys have Shudder, check out Ghostwatch. Definitely worth a watch. And that does it for today's episode of Cinemacast, guys. Thank you for watching. And before we end it, let's talk about today's sponsor, W Energy Blend Drink. If you guys go to w.gg, they are sponsored by gamers and streamers all over the internet, Twitch, Kick, and such, and YouTube. They have different blends of they have different flavors of the blend. It's an energy drink, basically. It's a powder energy drink. You add it to water and such, You know, there's more than 10 different flavors. They are today's sponsor. If you guys go to w.gg, if you want to make any purchases on their website today, be sure to use promo code ARROW, WAN, and you guys will save 10% on that purchase. Also, if you guys want to purchase anything from our merch store, link for that is down below. You guys can go check that out. If you want to buy any merch from the store, use promo code ARROWENT. You guys will save 15% on your purchase today. Also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below if you guys have yet to do so. Thank you for joining me today for today's episode of Cinemacast. And until next time, we'll see you right back here at the cinema.